Well, hello there, vinyl community. I haven't done one of these videos in about 2 months. I try to keep these quick. I want to talk about a couple topics. I'm going to briefly talk about the MoFi thing. And then I want to end with just some recent purchases, some new stuff I've picked up that I think is really interesting, and some stuff that's been in heavy rotation. So, to start off, Monday night, I saw the Black Keys at Meriwether Post Pavilion in Maryland. So they have just kicked off a new tour, 32 dates, is my understanding. The show I saw, I think, was the third or fourth show of the tour, so they're still in the early stages of the tour. If you get a chance to see this show, go see this show, man. It was absolutely killer. It's the best show I've been to since the lockdown was lifted and shows started coming back. It was a nice long show. They hit like all periods of their career, new stuff, old stuff. It was just absolutely top notch. Saga's going to start, seeing that this is kind of a vinyl community thing, kind of talk about or show some of the albums I've got over the years and kind of give you a brief primer on the band if you're not familiar with them. So let me just kick it right off. So there's kind of the early period of the Black Keys. They were like pretty basic drum and bass duo, often confused with the White Stripes because they're doing kind of a similar thing. I don't have all their albums from their period. I do have Rubber Factory. I can't remember if this is the first or second album. Kind of a Rubber Factory thing because they're from Akron, Ohio, where they make all the car tires, and that's also where Chrissie Hynde of the Pretenders is from, by the way. Thick Freakness, another early Black Keys album. So they were pretty heavy and kind of blues based. They've always been blues based, but they're maybe like a little bit more kind of raw and basic on the early albums. And I got turned on to them. I think this was around 2009, 2008, I forget. This was the album when I first got turned on to them. Attack and Release. They start refining their sound a little bit here. This one's produced by Danger Mouse. I also have this one on vinyl as well because it's one of my favorites, and it was the album that got me turned on to the Black Keys. Then they put out Brothers. This is probably the one that made them into real rock stars. Probably their most popular, probably their best album, although I don't think they've ever put out a bad album. And I believe this is the one that they won a Grammy for. They followed that up with El Camino. Then they came along with Turn Blue. Personally, out of all the later albums that followed Brothers, this one's probably my favorite of the kind of later period. After Turn Blue, they gave us Let's Rock. I was just listening to this album this evening because I don't think I gave that one enough attention when it first came out, and it's been on heavy rotation for me. Then COVID happened, and I think this was their lockdown album. They did an album of covers with some other some old blues musicians that they really admired to kind of help back them up on this album. They do an album of covers. This is, like I say, kind of during the lockdown period. This came out about a year ago. More about this in a minute. Then, just very recently, Dropout Boogie, their latest, the one that they're touring for right now. Also very good. When they did the show, they did a section kind of in the middle of the set where they brought out some of the guest musicians that played with them on Delta Cream. And they kind of did, I thought it was really nice, they did a section of about 4 songs where they brought in these guys, some old blues musicians that were big influences on the Keys. And he did a section of like blues covers where they kind of traded off doing kind of the two guitarists kind of played off each other. I thought this section was the best part of the show, but the whole show was absolutely stellar. So anyway, enough about the Black Keys. If you get a chance to see him on this tour, please treat yourself. Go see him. It is a killer show. So now on to the MoFi thing. Bloody, bloody, bloody. We've all heard about the MoFi thing, the big controversy. Everyone's got opinions about it. I guess I probably don't really care. I do get it. I know what the controversy is. I'll just kind of tell you briefly what my history of MoFi is. For a long time, I only had a few MoFis. When I was like just out of high school, I got a MoFi of Abbey Road. So this is a true analog. This is before the controversy. And for a very long time, I did not have any other copies of Abbey Road. I felt like I had the definitive version, so why bother ever buying another one? And I also, early on, for a very long time, only had one other MoFi, and that was on compact disc. Mars Hotel by the Grateful Dead. Again, sounded fantastic. I never felt any interest in ever having another copy of this album because this one just sounded so good. I was like, I can't imagine that I just stuck with it. So this is also an older generation MoFi compact disc, Stand Up by Jethro Tull. I picked it up because this is one of those few albums I do collect multiple copies of because it's like a true desert island disc for me. And that version stands up very well to some of the competition. I'm maybe a little partial to the Steve Wilson remix, but I'm always interested in hearing different versions of that album. Other MoFis that I've picked up are definitely from the now controversial era. I don't have many, but Floodland by Sisters of Mercy, the only copy I've ever owned of this album. Sounds great. I bought this on a recommendation of Mike from the In-Groove, the guy who did some sleuthing on the MoFi thing. You all know that story. But this is a 45 RPM edition of John Wesley Harding in mono. OG monos of this are insanely rare and expensive. So this is a 45 RPM Holy Grail version of John Wesley Harding. I'll just come out and say it. I'm not a big Dylan fan. I just am not a big Dylan fan. But this is the one Dylan album that I really like. Probably my favorite Dylan album. So when I found out about this version in mono, I jumped on it. And here's where it gets maybe a little interesting for me. For years and years and years, ever since I was in high school, I've played the first B-52's album to death. Absolutely love this album. This MoFi is pretty recent. It was very highly praised. I went with the hype and I bought it, and I am just blown away. I can't even begin to describe what a sonic improvement it is. So many details I'd never heard in the mix. The drums and bass just had so much more punch than what I was used to. And again, this is an album I've listened to hundreds of times, and I was just absolutely floored. I felt like I've been listening to a crappy 8-track version all these years. Yeah, I don't really have any problem with the whole MoFi thing. But I get it. I understand what it's all about. And maybe they should have been a little more clear about their sourcing. But so again, one of the first MoFis I ever got was an analog MoFi of Abbey Road. Never felt the need to own another copy of it until recently. I don't have a problem with the Giles Martin remixes. I was really blown away by his work on Sgt. Pepper and the White Album. So I said, yeah, why not? Go ahead and finally get a new version of Abbey Road. So I got the Giles Martin remix. It is a remix. I I think he does great work, and I really appreciate hearing kind of a fresh take on how that album should sound. And I think the Giles Martin sounds fantastic. And then a couple months ago, another channel, Parlophone Auctions YouTube channel. He's an expert on Beatles recordings and pressings. He did a program on his favorite CD editions of Beatles albums, and he's like kind of an expert on all things Beatle. And his opinion was the 1987 first run of CDs that were produced by George Martin. He thought that when it came to the later albums, that those were the best ones out there. And I never really got why people were so down on those 87 mixes. I thought they were pretty good because George Martin was involved. And he's right. The Sgt. Pepper's is for years has kind of been my go-to version. But I'd never heard the 87, the old 80s CD of Abbey Road. So I figured, what the heck, all these years. So sure enough, I went to a record show for $4 and got the old, now obsolete 80s CD pressing. And if you're in the market for a good version of Abbey Road, this thing kicks ass. It's very, I'd say the thing that really struck me with it was the drums. Ringo's drums were so clear in this mix. I'd never really even noticed Ringo's drum playing all that much on this album, but I was like, really, there was just this real heft to the drumming. And yeah, these are a dime a dozen. You can find these for nothing because this edition of the compact discs is considered obsolete these days. But on some of the Beatles albums, those, again, the later ones, they are solid. Sgt. Pepper's White Album, though I do prefer the mono mix of the White Album, and Abbey Road are absolutely solid. You can find it for $1 at a garage sale. Check it out. So the MoFi thing, a lot of people are concerned, and a lot of people seem to be specifically concerned about Miles Davis recordings because we all love Miles, right? So I think some people were concerned because there are some one-steps coming out, and now there's all this concern about MoFi. And if we're going to talk about Miles, I'm going to put in a plug for this box set, which I bought pretty recently on Amazon. I think it's still in print. This is the original mono recordings. So this is a CD box set, and there's just like a lot of Miles' all-time greatest works are in this box set. We get Sketches of Spain, we get Round About Midnight, we get Kinda Blue in mono, and they sound just amazing. It's a really nice box set. It's not that pricey considering what all you get in this box set. It's, you get a lot of music in this box set, and these are the original mono mixes. So as of July 27th, 2022, any of the Columbia albums in this box set, I don't feel the need to get any other versions of these. I feel like I got more than my money's worth here. I love hearing these mono mixes. They're very well done. And again, I'm pretty sure this is still in print. I bought mine on Amazon pretty recently. So if you are interested in this period of Miles, this box set is a deal, guys. I would not hesitate. So I highly recommend that. So now we're getting into kind of the tail end here. I just want to kind of talk about some new albums I bought that maybe you haven't heard. I'm going to recommend. This is kind of like new stuff that I've just picked up in the last couple of months. Real briefly, the Free Design. They're kind of a what's the term for it? That kind of flaky 60s pop music, kind of like the Association, or dare I say the Carpenters. but I just think it's absolutely lovely. The singing is wonderful. This is a super clean OG copy, except for one very annoying scratch. But apart from that, it's a super clean copy. This is a 1967 pressing. But yeah, I guess the free design's probably not for everybody, but I got turned on to them. Someone did kind of a remix project of some of their songs. Maybe they were doing it ironically, but that's a new album for me, and I absolutely love it. Really been getting into Donovan. So this was a reissue from the 70s. So this is actually two albums. I was a little confused at first. It is Donovan in Concert. I actually have another copy of this album, a fantastic live album. And then I bought it for Sunshine Superman, the album I had not heard. So Sunshine Superman is great. Unfortunately, this one it turned out to be pretty scratched up, and I think I'm going to try to get an upgrade of this. The music is fantastic. Not such a great copy, so I think I'll probably try to find me an upgrade of that. Now, here is a recent dollar bin find. This was in the cheap bins. Total Eclipse by Billy Cobham. Billy Cobham is a jazz drum playing badass, member of the Mahavishnu Orchestra. I had never seen this album in my life, and just imagine finding an OG copy in the wild. Here's like the original inner sleeve. It's my copy's kind of scratched up, but that's okay because I paid $3 for it, and it's kind of a loud album anyways. The scratches and the pops don't really mean a whole lot, but that's a very cool album. I'd never seen that one before. I just found it in the wild. Very good. This is an electronic band called Telephone Tel Aviv. I've been listening to this album for years. I've had a copy that I bought on iTunes. No idea it was even released in vinyl. And I was on vacation. I went to a record store in Connecticut. Imagine my surprise, I find a vinyl copy of this absolutely just stellar electronic album. So yeah, I snagged it. $14.98. Most people probably never heard of Telephone Tel Aviv. So when I saw this sucker in that bin, I did not hesitate. So check out some Telephone Tel Aviv. This is some kind of 60s Brazilian jazz stuff. Maybe kind of version on easy listening. I don't give a shit. I like it. I think it's great stuff. Sergio Mendes and Brazil 66. Album is called Look Around. I think this is their most popular album. It's the only one I've ever heard by them. $3, also kind of scratched up, but it sounds so good that I don't care. It's just wonderful music. So kind of lastly, Record Store Day. There's a lot of garbage that comes out on Record Store Day, and then there's stuff that sells out immediately. And some of the stuff that sells out immediately, just, it just sells out real quick. And then people flip them, and, good luck trying to get a Record Store release. A lot of stores have whole bins of Record Store Day stuff that maybe they're stuck with or whatever. Keep your eyes open, because sometimes vendors don't get their stuff on Record Store Day. There's a local store I shop at in Alexandria called Crooked Beat. A lot of his Record Store Day stuff didn't show up until about a month after Record Store Day. I go into his store, and he's got about 10 copies of this guy on the shelves. This is a mono reissue of Art Pepper. This was a very hot item on Record Store Day, promptly sold out immediately. So imagine my surprise when I walk into Crooked Beat Records and find like 10 of these sitting on the shelf. So keep an eye on those Record Store Day bins. There can be some real gems from Record Store Day that are hiding in there. Speaking of which, This is one you're probably not gonna find. It came out on Record Store Day, and it's probably being flipped like crazy now. But I was listening to it again. This came out last year. This is May 9th, 1977, The Grateful Dead. This was a Record Store Day release, and it's just vintage 77 Dead. One of the all-time great Help Slip Franklins on that LP. So yeah, you may luck out and still be able to find a copy of that somewhere. So lastly, an album that's been on heavy rotation for me. I just love everything by this artist. The more I listen to him, the better he gets. I'm talking about Mr. Wes Montgomery. This is the album Boss Guitar. It's a reissue on the Riverside label. So it's a modern vinyl repressing of very old jazz album, but it's just wonderful stuff. And the older I get, the more I just absolutely love anything from Wes Montgomery. So that is most definitely on my heavy rotation. So that's what I got, guys. Y'all have a good evening. See you around vinyl community. Y'all have a good night. Take care.